I absolutely adore the Kawasaki W800. I think it's indisputably the most authentic retro motorcycle that you can buy in India today. But as is the case with a few Kawasaki's here, there is a deal breaker, and that is the price. Happily though, after a rather long wait, Kawasaki has finally done what we expected it to do a while ago, and it's launched the smaller, more affordable W175 here in India. Can this offer a more pocket-friendly version of that same charming retro experience? Like its elder sibling, the first impression is that this is a fairly basic motorcycle. There are no frills here, you've got a halogen headlight up front, fairly simple instrumentation, and in many overseas markets, it's still sold with a carburetor. It's only in India that it gets a fuel injection system to help it meet BS6 emission norms. But then again, it would be silly to criticize a retro motorcycle for not having fancy features or the latest technology. In fact, there's a real beauty to the simplicity here, and the W has a lovely analog old school feel to it. Also, like its elder sibling, it's greater than the sum of its parts. You still get some of the essentials though, to ensure that this old school experience doesn't come with old world problems. There's the fuel injection system I mentioned, and you also get the safety net of single channel ABS. Although a rear drum brake is a little too old school at this price point.
What's also a bit of a letdown at this price is the way the bike looks. Now, don't get me wrong, it is a nice looking motorcycle, simple and elegant. But for a bike that's going to nudge 2 lakh rupees on road, it just doesn't have the presence or the wow factor that it should. Part of this is down to its rather compact dimensions, but it also doesn't do itself any favors with this unremarkable black paint scheme. The other red and gold color option fixes this issue to some extent by adding some flair. Where the little Kawi does feel like a near 2 lakh rupee bike is in the way it's built. We're happy to report that despite this being Kawasaki's most affordable offering and the only bike from Team Green to be manufactured in India, it still retains the Japanese brand's high build quality. There are no frills here, but whatever there is all feels very solidly put together, and the bike has a beefy feel to it despite its compact size. The switches look simple in keeping with the rest of the bike, but they feel good to operate and they work well.
Riding the 175 is a very classically pleasing experience. There's a lot of joy to be derived from operating the motorcycle, but it's not going to get your heart racing. This is a laid-back, low-compression 2-valve engine, so pick up the throttle at low RPM and it very gladly plays along, and then it carries you strongly through the mid-range. But there isn't a great deal of reward in revving it all the way out, so you might as well shift up and repeat the process, which works beautifully up to 80 kph. Getting to this point, the little Kawi is actually quite peppy and only slightly slower than something like a Hunter 350. But beyond 80 kph, it reminds you that it's only a small 177cc air-cooled single. Acceleration trails off quite drastically beyond 80 and vibes begin to creep in. You won't be far into the triple digits before the bike completely runs out of steam, and it's not very relaxed or comfortable at these high speeds either. But then that's not what this bike is about anyway. What it's best at is this, coasting along little B-roads or gliding through city streets where you don't have to bother with constantly shuffling through the gearbox, which is just as well because it's a slightly erratic unit. Effortlessness is a theme across the motorcycle, and there are some very friendly numbers here. 135 kilo curb weight and 790 mm seat height, and these translate into a very approachable and cooperative motorcycle. Whether you're guiding it around corners or slicing through city streets, there is an air of ease to riding the W175, and that's not something you can say about many retro motorcycles. The Hunter 350, for example, is Royal Enfield's tool for targeting younger, smaller built, less experienced riders, and that is over 40 kilos heavier than this bike.
As with any motorcycle though, the little W has a few flaws. The easygoing, joyful nature of the bike makes you want to ride it all day. Unfortunately, the seating comfort doesn't allow that. The bike as a whole is quite narrow, and so the seat is quite narrow too, and you end up with pressure points on your backside after being aboard for a while, so you will need occasional brakes. For my 5'8" frame, the bike's compact dimensions are just about alright and it fits me well. But if you are any taller, you will find yourself a little cramped, specifically in the leg region. Where the bike does afford you some comfort is with its suspension setup. It was a little difficult to put a finger on ride quality because at most times it flattened out imperfections rather well, but on a few other occasions it did crash through bumps and toss me around a bit. What was unusual is that there was no clear correlation between things like speed or the size of the bumps and how the suspension behaved. Brakes were a more consistent affair, but they were consistently quite mushy. The initial bite from the front disc is quite soft and the feeling of mushiness remains even when you squeeze the lever harder. That being said, it does come to a stop quickly enough when you give it a strong tug, and the ABS works well in a smooth manner.
In many ways, the W175 is very clearly the younger sibling to the W800. If you set out to buy a motorcycle using purely your head, you probably will not end up with this bike. There are a lot of motorcycles out there that can deliver more, both on paper and in the real world, for the same sort of money. But if you take a spin on it and see what it does to your heart, you'll probably find that it offers a very simple, likable and authentic retro motorcycling experience that's still very approachable and easy. Like the W800, it demands a premium for this special experience, but in this case, that premium is a great deal more digestible, with the 175 costing a shade under 1.5 lakh rupees ex-showroom.